All right, so 3D animation, huh? You want to build worlds and bring characters to life? I get it. It's pretty cool stuff. We've got a whole pile of career guides and industry insights here, and honestly, it's a lot to unpack. But think of this deep dive as your cheat sheet, your roadmap, whatever you want to call it, to navigating the world of 3D animation.
It's a wild world out there.
It really is. So we'll break down the skills you need, the software you'll be using, and even what to expect when you land that dream job. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll be the one designing the next big blockbuster character or creating a mind-blowing video game world.
The possibilities are seriously endless these days. It's pretty amazing.
Totally. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's rewind a bit. What exactly does a 3D animator do? I mean, it's got to be more than just, like, making things move on a screen, right?
Oh, way more. Yeah, you'll be using software like Maya or Blender, to bring these 3D models, characters, objects, even whole environments to life. But it's not just about the technical stuff, the software. It's about storytelling. You're basically a puppeteer breathing life and emotion into these creations.
Okay, so you're the one giving them that personality, that spark.
Exactly.
That makes me think of the new Avatar movie, The Way of Water. I mean, those underwater creatures, the way they moved, it was just mesmerizing.
Right, and that's what's so cool about 3D animation. It can be magical, fantastical, or even incredibly realistic, like those video game cutscenes, where you can practically see the character thinking, every eyebrow raise, every smirk. That's a 3D animator at work.
Wow, okay. So you need some serious artistic talent for this, but then also, like, the technical know-how to make it all happen on screen.
Exactly. It's a real blend of both. You need a handle on 3D modeling, rigging, texturing, lighting. It's a whole process.
Rigging. Can you break that down a bit for those of us who haven't quite reached animation guru status yet?
Sure. It's basically like creating a digital skeleton for your 3D model. Think of it like you're creating a system of bones and joints so your character can move in a realistic way. Otherwise, you've got a really cool-looking statue, not much else.
So without rigging, no epic fight scenes, no graceful ballets.
Exactly.
Nothing.
Got it. So let's talk about actually breaking into this industry. I've heard it can be super competitive.
It's definitely not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. But the cool thing is we've got some pretty solid advice here in these guides, like a roadmap for aspiring animators.
Okay, so it's not just about luck. It's about, like, taking the right steps.
So what's step one? Do you absolutely need, like, a fancy degree in animation to even get your foot in the door?
Well, a degree in animation, or honestly, even something related like computer graphics or fine arts, that's pretty common. But honestly, a killer portfolio trumps a diploma every time. It's like your visual resume, showing, not just telling, what you can do.
It's like they say, show, don't tell.
Exactly.
So personal projects, internships, even freelance work, those can all help build that portfolio, right?
Absolutely. And it's not just about how many projects you have, but more about showcasing your very best work, Projects that get you excited, that show off what makes your style unique.
So find your niche, find your style, and let it shine. Now, what about these online animation communities, the competitions, all that? I see that mentioned a lot. How important is that?
Oh, man, it's huge. And not just for feedback, though that's important too, but for networking, for exposure. Think about it. You're connecting with other animators, studios, recruiters.
Right, you're building a network before you even graduate.
Exactly. And you can get your work in front of people who might actually hire you.
It's like that whole your network is your net worth idea, but for animators.
100%.
So you're honing your skills, building that portfolio, connecting with other animators online. What's next? How do you go from aspiring animator to actually landing a job?
Well, that's where understanding the typical career path comes in.
Okay, so let's break down those stages. What can someone just starting out expect? Let's say they're like fresh out of school, or maybe they've got a few personal projects they're really proud of. What's next?
You'll probably start as an entry-level animator. You're going to be working on smaller tasks, assisting more senior animators, and just soaking up as much knowledge as you can.
Kind of like an apprenticeship, paying your dues.
Exactly.
Okay, so then what? You put in the time, you learn the ropes, and then you move on to becoming a junior animator.
Right. You're taking on more responsibility, tackling bigger projects. You might even have more freedom to get creative, develop your own style a bit more.
So you're becoming more valuable to the team.
Absolutely. You're not just the new person anymore. And then as you keep impressing people, you'll climb the ladder to a mid-level animator.
And that's where you might even start mentoring some of those newer animators yourself, passing on what you've learned.
Yeah. You're becoming a leader at that point, overseeing projects, providing guidance, making sure everything meets those high standards.
And then finally, you reach the peak, the senior animator.
Yeah, the senior animators, they're like the Jedi masters of the animation world. They're not just crazy talented, but they have this deep understanding of the entire process, from that initial idea to the final product.
From what I'm seeing in these guides, they're involved in every step of the way, leading teams, mentoring, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in animation.
Exactly. They're the ones bringing the director's vision to life, making sure everything's not just technically amazing, but also tells the story in a way that's emotionally captivating and visually stunning.
Wow, that's a whole journey. But let's be real, it's not always glamorous, is it?
Yeah.
This industry, it's known for being tough, demanding.
It definitely has its challenges.
And these guides don't sugarcoat it either. They talk about the good, the bad, and the just plain ugly.
Totally. But hey, that's why we're here, right? To give you the full picture.
So let's talk about the good stuff first. What are some of the perks? I mean, besides getting paid to do what you love, of course.
Well, there's that creative fulfillment, getting to work on projects that millions of people will see and love. And yeah, the salary potential isn't too bad either.
Okay, so those are some pretty good perks, I have to admit. But what about those downsides? What should people be prepared for?
Well, the competition, it's fierce. You're always having to up your game, learn new software, new techniques, and you got to be okay with long hours, tight deadlines, all that jazz.
So it's not just about being good at animation. It's about, like, having that drive, that passion to keep learning and pushing yourself.
You got it. Because when you're passionate about what you do, the challenges, they don't seem so daunting.
So true.
Mhm.
And speaking of things that can make navigating this field a little easier, we got to talk about this tool that keeps popping up, RoleCatcher. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, it seems like it's a game changer, especially for people just starting out.
From what I'm reading, it uses AI to like analyze your resume, your cover letter, even helps you prep for interviews.
It's like having a career coach in your back pocket.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground already. We talked about what 3D animators do, the skills they need, the typical career path, and even some tools like RoleCatcher that can help along the way.
And we kept it real, talked about those challenges and the amazing opportunities in this field.
But before we move on, we've got to talk about the software. After all, these are the tools of your trade.
Time to geek out a little bit because we're diving headfirst into the world of Maya, Blender, and all the other software you need to know. All right, so software. This is where things get really interesting because we're talking about the actual tools you're going to be using to make those animations come to life.
I'm ready to geek out. Let's do it. So these sources mention a bunch of different programs, but it seems like Autodesk Maya, that's the big one, the industry standard.
Yeah, it's kind of like the top dog in the animation world, and for good reason. Maya is crazy powerful, super versatile. I mean, they've used it for everything, like those massive blockbuster films, think Spider-Man. Into the Spider-Verse, they used Maya for that. And even for those hyper-realistic video game cutscenes we were talking about, Maya's behind a lot of that too.
Wow, okay. So Maya, definitely top of the list. But what makes it so special? Why do so many studios and animators swear by it?
Well, it's incredibly comprehensive. Like, you can do it all in Maya. You've got your modeling tools where you're essentially sculpting those characters and objects digitally. Then there's rigging, giving them that skeleton so they can move, walk, jump, all that good stuff. And of course, the animation itself, which is where you actually bring everything to life, frame by frame.
So it's like the ultimate 3D animation Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
But looking at it, I'm not going to lie, it looks pretty intimidating. Is it hard to learn?
There's definitely a learning curve. It's not something you just pick up overnight. But hey, anything worth doing takes a little effort, right? Think of it like learning a new language or maybe learning a musical instrument. It takes time, dedication, practice, but you get better with each project, each animation you create.
So you're saying don't get discouraged if you don't become a Maya master in like a week.
Exactly. And the best part is there are tons of resources out there to help you along the way. You've got online tutorials, courses, and there's a huge online community of Maya users, people who are always down to help out a newbie.
That's so helpful.
Right.
It's good to know you don't have to figure it all out on your own. Now, Maya's not the only game in town, right? What about Blender? I've heard that's becoming pretty popular.
Yeah, Blender's super interesting because it's open source, which means it's totally free to use. And that's a big deal, especially for like independent animators, smaller studios, anyone who might not have the budget for a Maya license.
Free is always good,
Yeah.
especially when you're just starting out and experimenting. But is Blender as powerful as Maya? Can it do all the same things?
It's a little different for sure, but honestly, Blender's come a long way.
Hmm.
And it's constantly evolving with this whole community of developers working on it. In fact, it's gotten so good that even some bigger studios are starting to use it alongside Maya in their workflow.
So it's like the underdog that's quickly becoming a contender.
Exactly.
What kind of projects is Blender best for? If someone's thinking, okay, I want to try Blender, what should they know?
It's pretty versatile, honestly, but it really shines in indie game development, for those awesome indie games we all love. It's also great for animated short films and even for visual effects in films and TV shows.
Okay, so Blender, definitely a contender. Now, we'd be doing our listeners a disservice if we didn't mention 3ds Max. It's another one that comes up a lot in these guides.
Oh yeah, 3ds Max is another powerhouse, especially when it comes to things like architectural visualization and product design. Like, if you're into designing sleek sports cars or those crazy skyscrapers, 3ds Max is known for creating those super realistic renderings, the kind that architects and designers use to show off their work.
So if someone's dreaming of designing the next iPhone or a breathtaking skyscraper, that's their software.
It could be, yeah. It's got that reputation for a reason.
Okay, so I've got Maya, Blender, 3ds Max. Are there any other programs aspiring animators should have on their radar?
Those three are a great starting point, for sure. But the animation world, the software, it's always evolving. Another one is Cinema 4D. It's really popular for motion graphics, and a lot of people find it pretty user-friendly.
User-friendly is always a plus, especially when you're just starting out and everything feels like a foreign language.
Right. And then for those who are really into the technical nitty-gritty stuff, like creating mind-blowing special effects, the kind that makes you go, how did they do that? That's Houdini.
Houdini.
Yeah, that's like the special effects wizard of the software world. We're talking realistic explosions, fire, water simulations, all those wow moments in movies. A lot of that is done using Houdini.
Oh, okay. So you've got all this software, all these amazing programs, each with its own strengths and specialties.
Yeah.
It can be a little overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
I mean, where do you even begin? What if you pick the wrong software to learn?
I get it. It can feel like a lot. But honestly, the best advice I can give is to figure out what kind of animation really excites you. Like, what gets you fired up? What kind of projects do you dream of working on? Once you know that, you can research which software is most commonly used in that area and kind of narrow your focus a bit.
So work smarter, not harder.
Yeah,
Focus your energy on what you really want to do.
exactly. And hey, mastering one program, it doesn't mean you can't learn another one later on. You'll have that foundation to build upon. But it's a lot easier to focus your energy on one at a time. Now, as important as it is to master the technical side, the software, that's just one piece of the puzzle. You've got to have the artistic vision, the storytelling chops too. Otherwise, it's like you've got this amazing set of paintbrushes, but no idea what to paint.
That's a great analogy. So how do you develop that artistic eye? We're talking animation principles, character design, storytelling. Where do we even begin?
Okay, so we've covered the tools, the software, the tech stuff, but what about the art of it all? I mean, knowing how to use the software is one thing, but how do you make those animations really come to life?
That's where those animation principles come in, the stuff that makes those characters feel real, believable, even if they're like a talking dragon or a singing teapot.
Right, because a moving character isn't necessarily an interesting character.
Exactly. It's about timing and spacing, exaggeration, anticipation. These principles, they're like the secret sauce.
And they apply to any kind of animation, right? Not just 3D.
Oh, yeah, totally. These principles, they've been around since like the golden age of animation. Think Walt Disney. His team, they were masters of this stuff. They knew how to bring those characters to life.
Exactly. It's those subtle things,
Yeah.
a well-timed pause, a little exaggeration in a movement. That's what gives it that personality, that charm.
It makes you believe it, even if it's a cartoon.
Exactly.
The sources we've got here, they really emphasize the importance of studying the greats, like watching those classic animated films, really analyzing them.
Oh, absolutely. It's like taking a master class, seeing how those legendary animators use these principles to create those iconic characters and scenes.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technical stuff either. You've got to have a good story and compelling characters.
Just brings us to character design.
Yes. And this is where you can really let your creativity run wild. Because a good character design, it's not just about making something look cool. You want characters that are memorable, relatable, characters that the audience connects with.
Characters you remember long after the movie's over.
Mm-hmm.
Like Buzz and Woody or Mike and Sully from Monsters, Inc. They're iconic.
Exactly. And those designs, they're not just random. They tell you something about the character, their personality. It's all connected to the story.
And speaking of story, We've got to talk about visual storytelling.
Because it's not enough to just have pretty animation. You've got to use those visuals to tell a story.
Every frame matters.
Absolutely. And that's where a really good 3D animator, they shine. They understand that every movement, every camera angle, even a character's expression, it all contributes to the story you're trying to tell.
So you need to think like a director, a cinematographer, all of it.
Exactly. You're not just animating, you're creating an experience for the audience.
Wow. Okay. So much to think about.
Hmm.
And this is where it can feel, I don't know, maybe a little overwhelming. We've talked about the skills, the software, the artistic side. But how do you actually break into this industry? It's competitive out there.
It definitely takes more than just talent.
Right. These sources we've got, they all say the same thing. Networking is key.
Oh, yeah, it's huge because you're not just competing against other animators, you're also competing against their networks, who they know, who's recommending them.
So how do you build a network in the animation world?
Well, it doesn't have to be all fancy industry events and awkward small talk. Honestly, it can be as simple as connecting with other animators online, joining those communities we talked about. Even just sending a message to someone whose work you admire, asking for a quick chat.
It's all about putting yourself out there.
Exactly. And don't underestimate social media.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one these days.
It's like your online portfolio right there for everyone to see. Studios are looking for talent online all the time.
So you've got your skills, your networking, building your online presence. What about the actual job search? Resumes, cover letters, all that fun stuff.
Well, the good news is even that is getting easier thanks to technology.
You're talking about AI, right?
Yep. And specifically, this tool we mentioned earlier, RoleCatcher.
It's like having a secret weapon for your job search.
Right, because it can analyze your resume and cover letter. Like, it's not just checking for typos, it's looking at how well it matches the job description, suggesting improvements, even helping you tailor it to specific companies you're interested in.
Wow, so it's like having a career coach and a marketing expert all rolled into one.
Pretty much. And then there's the interview prep. I mean, interviews can be scary.
The worst.
But RoleCatcher, it actually simulates job interviews, asks you common questions, gives you feedback on your answers.
It's like having a practice run before the big game.
Exactly. And honestly, that can make all the difference. So yeah, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. The skills, the software, the art of animation, and even how to navigate the job market.
We've thrown a lot of information at you, but hopefully you're walking away feeling not just informed, but inspired.
Because this is an exciting field, challenging for sure, but so rewarding if you're passionate about it.
So if you're ready to bring your imagination to life, to tell stories through the power of 3D animation, take that first step. Dive in, learn the skills, master the software, and never stop creating. Who knows? Maybe we'll see your name on the credits of the next big animated blockbuster.
Wouldn't that be something?
It would. All right, that's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep animating.